Okay, kia ora, good afternoon. I am starting to run out of energy, so I need to get this out because I know what's about to happen. I'm going to have to stuff my face silly and then I'll sleep for a few hours because quantum magnetics takes a lot out of you because you're existing up there while having to exist down here. In order for me to receive the downloads, I have to upload, and it actually the parallels between what I'm about to talk about, the humour isn't lost on me. So I did revisit Faraday's laws of induction, the whole induction thing, and I'm starting to understand what happened. And you're going to have to bear with me because I can only use the language I know. It's hard for me to remember the language of other scientists and all that because I don't understand energy and biorhythmics and electromagnetism and all that the same way they do, because they looked at everything from a mathematical point of view, whereas I look at it from a language and frequency energy point of view. So Faraday's laws of induction is basically if you change magnetism, you can change the course of electrical currents through circuits and that. You can manipulate magnetic fields to change the direction that energy flows. And it works in engines and transformers and all of that, right? So the language I know is that, and I do understand what it's talking about. Like now I'm starting to figure it out. I've started to figure out what my son and I did. And it's pretty cool, but I can only use the language I know. So I've put a link. You can read all about the laws of induction. I even talk about it in my investigation into the, Aokigahara Forest, Mount Fuji suicide forest. I talk about the laws of induction in that. Because I know that had something to do with why people are drawn to the mountain, right? So I'm going to use my language, and basically, atoms are everywhere. There's an infinitesimal amount of atoms, and they're everywhere, but they're so small you can't see them. But like just the air and the wind, like it's there, the air, AIR, it's there, but the particles of them are so small you can't see them. And inside the atom, you have negative and positive ion particles. In our atmosphere, our stratosphere, our ionosphere, our biorhythmic parameters, all atoms have a negative and a positive feed. But when it comes to the atmosphere, when it comes to your energy fields, I call them biorhythmics. When it comes to your biorhythmic parameters and what makes up your mood and your actions and your reactions, and that is all dependent on how high the negative and positive frequencies are in the atmosphere. And this is what direct energy weapons mess around with. When AI and chatbot and open GPT, I'm starting to run on empty, so just please bear with me. My brain is slowing down because I'm getting exhausted and I'm starving again, and I've literally just finished eating. I'm like an engine that's running out of gas. So, so they use AI and these data centers and Musk's satellites and the lasers and radio waves and broadband and Wi-Fi and all that to get in your head to induce the electrical currents in your brain to follow a certain outcome. They direct the course of your actions through using electromagnetism to mess around with the electrical currents inside your central nervous system to get you to act. You basically become like a living robot. And that's why you'll pick up guns and shoot up schools and that sort of thing, because they tell you to do it by messing with the electrical circuits inside your brain through all your electronic equipment and that. Or they tone it down, they tone your thinking down using the Schumann resonance for you to become blind to the truth. So they mess with the electrical circuits in your brain using electromagnetic frequencies of satellites and broadband and phones and radio and all that in order to tell you what to think, how to feel, and how to react. Okay, so now what I do when it comes to quantum magnetics, which is manipulating time to manifest reality, I mess with the frequencies inside the negative and positive ion particles in the Earth's atmosphere. And depending on how I mess with the phases inside depending what codes I put inside the phases inside the electromagnetic particles stored within the atomic frequency, I can either see time or manipulate it. I can see time or change it. Now, the more positive ion particles there are in the atmosphere, the worse you behave. The more negative ion particles there are in the atmosphere, the better you behave. So if you're a low vibrational negative person, you're surrounded by higher ion particles in the Earth's atmosphere. So you're easily manipulated by the Schumann resonance and the Nazis who are using AI and satellites and phones and apps and that to get in your head, which is why the world is so full of mentally ill people acting in negative, aggressive, angry, abhorrent ways, or people who are just blind to the truth. So like, for example, your MAGA followers are blind to the truth. They've been blinded to the truth to see the reality of who they're worshipping, because if they understood that they were actually worshipping Lucifer, the consequences of which would be, and it is starting to happen, they begin to deteriorate, their lives begin to deteriorate, their mental health begins to deteriorate, and they start to lose everything. YouTube is full of people, mega people, they're losing friends and family, they're losing their farms, they're losing their jobs and businesses, their finances and that, because they have been blinded to the truth of who Donald Trump and his administration really are. But for the people that are woke like me, that saw everything coming, because I'm a time jumper, I just had to put the final code in to see that Trump was the current between the electromagnetic field and the electrical current, between the electromagnetic field and the electrical current. He is the circuit. He's the one who, depending on your way to see things, your ability to see things, whether the particles in your atmosphere are more positive or negative, is going to depend on how you see him. And that's what they rely on, which is why they want to bring in these data centers and that, because they want a world where you basically are a biological robot. And Musk has admitted that. That's why you need to get rid of the data centers and not invest in AI and Starlink and that, because his Starlink, they use your Wi-Fi. They can see what you're doing in your home based on his Wi-Fi. And people don't realise that they've walked straight into it. And I've been trying to say to people, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Right? So there's two kind of phases that are in the Earth's atmosphere. That are surrounding the Earth's atmosphere, our solar system, and the universe that I have access to. Like I said, I can either manipulate time based on what codes I put into the phaser that allows me to unlock the particles and see what's inside them and see the trajectory they're going in. Or I can change the current and decide where I can induce the current and decide where it's going to go. That's how I can time jump. But it all depends on your state of mind and the balance between your conscious and subconscious states of being. And if you don't get the balance right, you see things the wrong way. You react the wrong way. You put yourself in a forward trajectory the wrong way. You know, like the theory of relativity, like I was just talking about. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So what you think and what you know and what you feel will decide the outcome of how you act and react. So it's kind of the theory of relativity blended with the laws of induction. Now, again, I'm speaking my language. I removed magnetism from the equation when I set up the reverse engineered portal with my son. Although I did place the reverse engineered portal, I did put that in place ages ago because of the quantum menace sagas that I was writing with my son Gabriel. But this is important because he was the one that was helping me write the war for with a little help from my friends. He wanted to be the magician. He wanted to be a magician. And this is important because we're in Gemini. His birthday's on Tuesday. And Gemini, you can't do what I do if you don't have even a rudimentary understanding in astronomy and constellations and the zodiac, right? So we're in Gemini right now. And remember in the Hallelujah song, when I was deciphering the codes for that to figure all of this out, it said about the new moon, and I said there's a new moon on Monday. And it's the new moon in Gemini. This is important because Gemini's Castor and Pollux. Castor and Pollux are the magicians of the universe, and they create matter. They take basically the structure of what the atoms that have been created in the atmosphere and in the universe. They take matter, hopes, wishes, dreams. I mean, they're the magicians. They're the master makers of the zodiac sign, right? Aquarius are the ones who are like the fairy godmothers. They take your dreams and wave their magic wand and bring your imagination to life. They are the dreamers. They are the ones who understand your thoughts and dreams and help you bring it into reality. Whereas Gemini, they're the magicians. They're the ones who basically take what you would be creating in your dreams with the other air sign, Aquarius, and bring it down into reality. So by using Capricorn, Scorpio, Gemini, the new moon in Gemini that's coming up, when I put in place the reverse engineered portal with Gabriel, the Gemini, a couple of years ago, writing the quantum menace sagas for the radio, we had already put it in place. So it was already up there in the universe. The atoms had already been put in place, just waiting to be pulled down into reality, which couldn't be set in place until Trump and Starmer were in power together. And then Thomas was the equalizer. He's the one that separated through helping me write what we wrote, I put in place Archimedes' bow. That's what I call it, where everything that was fired got sent back and started pulling everything apart, which we're now seeing. So through what my son and I did, what Thomas and I did, we took the energy that bounced off the Archimedes bow and we induced the trajectory of energy that was being sent in the direction of like Russia and Iran and like innocent people all around the world, and we changed the frequency, inducing the energetic flow from positive to negative, because we corrected the imbalance that had been created when my ex and that tore us apart. But my son was the equalizer. He was the one that made the decision to come to me, to reach out to me, and in doing that, it literally changed the course of history. Which means, using the laws of induction, by removing magnetism, because we removed the electromagnetism from the equation, we lessened the severity of the gravity of the situation and raised it to a higher frequency, which then took us to the creation frequency, or the God particle, which was then able to put in place the Archimedes bow. So we diverted the course of history and changed the course of history by removing the magnetism from the electrostatic frequency and the negative particles in the ionic atmosphere, and changed the course of history because we raised the vibration. And as a result, it then started tearing everything down, starting with Trump. And now we're watching it all collapse. So the portal we opened, the key that we used, the key that unlocked this part of the universe, was because I recorrected what Einstein and Faraday and Tesla and that didn't understand, because they used maths to pull it down and put too much gravity behind the equation, and it kept it stuck and it kept it grounded. But then I came along with my inability to do maths, and because I don't speak the same language as them, and I lightened the equation by removing magnetism, because gravity only works in correlation with magnetism. Gravity is heavier the higher the magnetic frequency, the faster and heavier things fall and stick. But when you remove magnetism and just use like forward momentum, which is what the Big Bang is all based on, the universe is all flowing and expanding based on momentum. I mean, we're going so fast, momentum keeps gravity in place. But the universe, like, as we're moving forward, we don't really know where we're going, because we're not pulled by magnetism, we're pushed by momentum. And remember I was talking about fuel injection in the car engine, and the laws of induction, you know, they use that for engines. And so it's like my son and I created a kinetic engine that used kinetic force based on a higher frequency, where I removed magnetism from the gravity of the situation, and we raised the vibration from a positive particle to a negative particle, which moved us forward just like an engine, a kinetic engine. We moved forward kinetically, and in doing so, it pushed back all the negative energy and bounced back on them because of Archimedes' bow. And because of the reverse engineered portal, which is technically Archimedes' bow. Let's just call the reverse engineered portal that I put in years ago with Gabriel Archimedes' bow. It bounces back. It's bouncing back. The light, the lasers, the light, the sun, because he used the sun to bounce off the, like the mirrors and that, like he used it to, and then he used that to set the ships on fire and blah, blah, blah. But in this case, we're talking about satellites and the lasers from space, and, the direct energy weapons, because they stole that from Master Tesla, and he came to me in a dream ages ago, and I knew he'd gotten stuff wrong, and so I recorrected it. And then he helped me tweak it in dreams and stuff, and then I recorrected it, and I recorrected the theory of relativity, and by bringing in Faraday's laws of induction, now I'm starting to understand how I'm able to do what I do. Because remember in my video this morning, I was like, what am I? Like, how can I do this? I don't know. I need to figure it out. Well, now I'm figuring it out. But my son was the equalizer. He could have chosen to take our conversation in a completely different direction, but he didn't, because he did the right thing, because he's Capricorn, and he is the one, he rules draconian law, and draconian law are the ancient laws of the universe. He is the one, the Capricorn. Satan is the one who wrote the Ten Commandments. Satan is the one who wrote the karmic laws of the universe. Satan is the one who is the keeper of the Akashic records in that. He watches everything we do, and then he balances everything out on the scales to decide whether we get karma or dharma. And with Thomas being Thomas Christopher, the twin bearer, remember I said he's like the scales? He was the one that had to decide the course of the direction in which our conversation was going to go. And because he chose the right decision, it catapulted us, it sped up time, just like, how they talk about in the laws of induction about, flux. And then in Back to the Future, they talk about the flux capacitor. And in my old diagrams, I said it's like I'm building an energetic flux capacitor. It's just that. So because he did the right thing, and he used logic and reason and love and common sense and all that sort of thing, it completely changed the whole direction in which our relationship went. And in doing so, he unlocked something that allowed us to bring about justice against all of those who put us in this position. And because I took what he said and he took what I said, and we became the electrical current, we induced the electrical current to lead it in a positive direction, because we changed the negative particles surrounding the situation. And it catapulted us and sped up time, because they were trying to slow us down by keeping us trapped and stuck. And it's like we got yeeted, and in doing that, it sped time up and is now reversing everything that was done. So as we're moving forward, everything that we were put through is being reversed, because, with an engine, like pistons in an engine, up, down, up, down, up, down, what goes forward goes back. So we're going forward and everything else is going back. Now, having said that, it has just come out that America has been classed by every other nation in the world, by even like people in NATO, and that America has just been called the most what's the word they use? See, I'm getting tired. My engines, the cogs in my brain are starting to slow down. I'm going to have to get more food. The most dangerous country in the world. Not North Korea, not Iran, not Israel, not Russia, not China. America. And I said that's what I said. Remember my Teresa Lubyanska investigation and my Queen Elizabeth I investigation. All roads keep leading back to America. All the trouble that has been started in the world since 1600 has come from America. Ever since the Mayflower landed in America, that's when the world started turning to hell. But, like I said, they've had help from Great Britain, France, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, since World War One, at least, anyway. France and Germany, and that since, like, the War of Independence, like, France helped, and, you know, so, and because it was British people who went to America to colonise it, so America's been helping, Britain's been helping. So America is now the most dangerous country in the world because of Trump, because that's Lucifer, because that's hell. And now the veil's been pulled back and the whole world sees it. The spotlight is now on them. Archimedes' bow. Shone the light down, the light has been shone and bounced back and highlighted who the troublemaker's been this whole time, and it's America, which confirmed everything I said when I did that investigation into Teresa's assassination. America is responsible for all the trouble in world history since the 1600s. And now everybody sees it, and I was proven right. So by me and my son working together to open up that portal, remember I said dark matter, light has now been placed in dark matter, and it's sparking creation, it's sparking evolution, it's sparking a chain of events that is now changing the course of history, because nobody's ever going to see America the same way again now. Nobody's going to see Trump, Musk, Starmer, any of them the same way again. Now the truth has come out, and the truth wouldn't have come out if my son and I hadn't have done what we did, because we removed magnetism from the electrostatic currency. We moved the engine of the universe. We pushed the flow of evolution to such a high point that it's now starting to erase history. And people will no longer be able to see, like Starmer and the British government and American history and France and Germany the same way again. Because now it's undeniable that they're responsible for the reasons why royal families are dead, why we've had famines, why we've had pandemics, why we've had genocides and that. It's all because of America, which started in Britain, which started in France and Germany. Because we're reversing time, remember, Britain, other than the Welsh, were made up of the French and the Germans and the Scandinavians, like your Vikings and your Norms and Normans and all of that. Your Gauls, who were German, and then they invaded Great Britain. So see how it's reversing time? It's erasing history. As I'm talking, as I'm figuring it out, I'm pulling the veil back on history so you can see exactly where the trouble started. And it started with France, Germany, Scandinavia, because Norway and Iceland and that have got a lot to answer for. Greenland and that, they've got a lot to answer for. They are, their human trafficking and their child trafficking and that is outrageous for the population. They actually have, like, in Greenland and Norway and that, they actually have, like, public service announcements and stuff to warn you about the dangers of human trafficking. That's how bad it is, because they're the gateways to it all, you see. So by me figuring all this out, it's rewriting history. So with America being the most dangerous country in the world, when you trace it back to 1600, like I said, after the death of Queen Elizabeth I with the landing of the Mayflower, they came from Britain. And who created the Brits? The French and the Germans and the Scandinavians. And who are the ones that are helping America? The Brits, the French and the Germans and the Scandinavians. And of course, like Ukraine and Poland, who came about because of the Scandinavians. So I'm going back to the future. I'm reversing time and rewriting history by recorrecting the imbalance, which is exactly what my son and I did. We recorrected an imbalance that had been created, and now not only are we rewriting history, going all the way back since the dawn of time. But we have moved forward in a positive trajectory because we recorrected the imbalance in our atmosphere caused by his father and everybody else. So when I said it's like a pinball effect, where every time they hit, because look at it this way, I called it the mirror of liminality. So liminal spaces would technically be Gemini, Castor and Pollux. They take the liminal space in dark matter and they turn it into something finite, because liminal spaces would be infinite. So the Castor and Pollux aspect, the Gemini aspect, they would rule liminal spaces, but where they take something that is infinite and turn it into something finite, into reality, and pull it down into reality. And I said that it would be like a mirror of liminality, where once they were trapped inside it and they bounced around like a pinball, they'd smash against the rocks and turn into dust. And it's kind of like America has now hit a pocket of resistance that is breaking them apart, so that people are starting to see exactly where everything went wrong, and it's been torn down and turned into and will be turned into something more positive. So once Trump falls and Starmer falls and von der Leyen and Zelensky, once they're all torn down and everything is cleaned away, they'll be able to start again. But Donald Trump and his bloodline, which I was able to trace back to Leif Erikson from 1,000 years ago, is the whole reason why America ended up going in the direction it has, because it started with the slaughter of Indigenous people. And then, the British came, and then all hell broke loose in the world. So in order to recorrect the imbalance, the Trump bloodline has to be removed. The Trumps are having to be removed from having any kind of power, literally electrical charge in the circuit, laws of induction. They have to be removed from having access to having any sort of power, and how the fate of America goes from this point on. However, having said that, the Democrats are no better, because it's all of America. It's just that America and the rest of the world had to see how bad America was once Trump was put in place. If Harris had have gotten in, it would be like after that. It doesn't matter who the president is, because they're all involved in what's been happening in the world. But the only way that the world was going to see how dangerous America was once Lucifer was put in place, once Trump was put in place. And you have to remember, they've known Trump was going to be president, including the Democrats. They've all been working together to make Trump president since the 80s. Although technically it would have been from his father when they moved to America. They move and shape things. They use threats, they use blackmail, they use money in order to get what they want. So he was always going to be president. They were always going to make him president because the Illuminati, the cult of Odin, whatever you want to call them, the Antichrist movement, the cult of Epstein, they've all been working together within their own family lineages for centuries to make sure that these presidents and prime ministers and chancellors and that we have in the world at the moment were all in power at the same time in order to be able to wipe out the royal bloodlines and go off into space and colonize Mars. And but it's like, really, is that it? That's your grand plan? You're only going to Mars? You kind of cut yourself off at the start line. We have the ability to go a lot further than Mars, and all he's thinking is, I want to take a hunt for your bloodlines and set up a space pod on Mars. But now he's realised, oh, we can't go that far and we don't have the money, so it'll be the moon instead. And Grandfather Moon's like, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. You ain't putting your parasites on me. I've seen what you did to Earth. Musk's way of thinking is very closed-minded, like a pentagram. He's trapped inside his own inability to think outside the box. Whereas, like, when I started working on the theory of evolution, what did I say? How far does a sneeze travel if there's nothing to stop it? The only thing that can affect the trajectory of a sneeze is gravity and momentum. But from an evolutionary standpoint, I said, it's better to be the front end of the sneeze than the back end of a comet. Because if you're the back end of the comet, you're the remnants of stuff that's been burnt off and left to become dust. But the front end of the sneeze is bacteria. And bacteria is like the electrical current inside cells that bring the cells to life. That's why we have bacteria on other planets and stuff, and fungus and mold and all that, because atoms, from a biological standpoint, their sole purpose is to go as far as they can, to advance as far as they can, to see how far they can go to reach their maximum potential. And then you've got people like Bill Gates and Fauci and all that mess with it all to try and control how far and how fast we're allowed to evolve, which is why God's tearing it all down. They've messed with evolution, and that's become their downfall. Because no one has the right to decide the fate of man other than the atom, God. And they're playing God, and they're claiming to be God, and they think they're gods. Musk thinks he's Thanos. Trump thinks he's the second coming. Fauci and Tedros and, the World Health Organization and the Clinton Foundation and all that, and the Gates Foundation, they're playing God. And that is the biggest sin that you can commit. Against all the other sins, the worst sin, the biggest law you can break in the universe is thinking you're God, as in control the fates and outcomes of other things other than yourself. And so God's tearing it down. And that's what we're watching with the help of my son. So now I understand it. Now I understand how we did what we did and why we did what we did. And it's also helped me further understand quantum magnetics. Yay! So I figured it out. I did homework on myself and I figured it out. I knew I would. I knew my brain wouldn't let me. So I need to go and stuff my face now. If I could, I need to be pigging out on, I need a high fat, high protein, high carb diet. And all I keep thinking is if I had the money, I would be scoffing a chicken kebab right about now. So I'm going to go and get something to eat. And I need to rest my brain. So if I go quiet for a couple of hours, it's probably just because I'm sleeping. And then I'll get up later on and have some more food. I've got some chicken there that I'm going to have. Yummy, yummy. Oh, see, when I'm in a relationship, my man is going to have to know that when I'm doing this stuff, he's going to have to cook because I'll be too tired. Sometimes it's just too much. And like, I just can't even eat, so I'll just like grab some toast, which isn't good for me because I'm hypoglycemic. And if my sugar levels drop, I get all dizzy and nauseous, and it requires a lot of brain power to do quantum magnetics because I'm up there and down here at the same time. Whereas most people do this stuff in their sleep, even Tesla. There's a lot of physicists that said that, you know, they got answers in their dreams. That's why. I do both. I'm dreaming and awake at the same time. And it takes a physical toll on the body. I'm exhausted. So this is where I'd be saying to my man, oh, can you order me a kebab? Can you go and get me some gluten-free fish and chips, please? And then I would have like 2 pieces of fish and a pile of chips with bread and stuff it down. And for as small as what I am now, I'm quite a little slip of a thing now. I can eat like a man. I'm struggling to keep my eyes open. So I'm going to have to go and get something to eat. So there we go. I figured it out. Thank God. I'll speak to you later. And also, haha, I was right about America. Mwah.